sweetest praise drifts back from heaven's shore, and I can't feel at home in this world anymore. Oh Lord, you know I have no friend like you. If heaven's not my home, then Lord, what will I do? The angels beckon me from heaven's open door, and I can't feel at home in this world anymore. This world is not my home, I'm just a passing through. My treasures are laid off somewhere beyond the blue. The angels beckon me from heaven's open door, and I can't feel at home in this world anymore. Oh Lord, you know I have no friend like you. If heaven's not my home, then Lord, what will I do? The angels beckon me from heaven's open door, and I can't feel at home in this world anymore. They're all expecting me, and that's one thing I know. My Savior pardoned me, and now I onward go. I know He'll take me through, though I am weak and poor, and I can't feel at home in this world anymore. Oh Lord, you know I have no friend like you. If heaven's not my home, then Lord, what will I do? The angels beckon me from heaven's open door, and I can't feel at home in this world anymore. Just up in glory land we'll live eternally. The saints on every hand are shouting.
Yes. No, yes, thank you. So, a couple of announcements. Yeah, it's okay. We're going to have, with the impending weather, whatever's going to happen, whether it's precipitation, certainly bitter cold, they're saying, could be, we're going to go ahead and move Salt and Light reorganization dinner or gathering, not this Sunday. We're not going to have it this Sunday now, the following Sunday. So we'll move that from this coming Sunday to the following Sunday, just to kind of clear for that. And then if anyone has Easter pictures from last year, from the egg hunt, right, that we had here at the building, if you've got some from last, see me or Bill, okay? So if you've got pictures from last year's egg hunt that we had, that'll be appreciated so we can have to use. All right. So we last week introduced this idea of Satan and his strategies, his schemes, what he's trying to do to hurt us and to bring us down and ultimately defeat us and destroy our faith. And we talked about that, kind of introduced that, and kind of talked about the general nature of just trouble and struggles and how Satan is the source of all of that, because it goes back to Genesis chapter 3 when we have him putting in Adam and Eve's minds and thinking those things that led them to make the choice to, of course, sin. And so Satan is the mastermind, and he's trying to hurt us. And so we want to talk about some of the ways or topics, it's a different way to talk about different topics. And I think it's a good, here we are in the first of the year. It's the cold winter months, and Satan is going to use a lot of these strategies to kind of trip us up as we start this new year, as we want to all hopefully grow and always be more for Christ. Well, so I think this will be a good study these next couple of months. So tonight, we want to talk about something I know we all probably can relate to, and that is anxiety. Is there anyone here who's never been anxious about? Because if you raise your hand, we want to talk with you afterwards about, number one, what are you doing? But probably also, hey, are you, you're maybe not being honest, because we've all been there and had things that have caused us to be anxious or to have stress or worry. And, what's going to be a key on this is we're going to, as we're going to see, I love the statement in 2 Timothy chapter 1 and verse 12. It's a familiar verse where Paul, as he's talking about the struggles he's faced being a minister and his suffering, and he says, there's no cause for shame because I know whom I have believed. That's going to be the key to all of this. Do we know whom we've believed? Because if we know that, certainly when it comes to anxiety and stress, that's going to be the key. And we're going to see that and come back to that here. But that's kind of the foundation. But we've all experienced anxiety, right? Stress. Question is, do we have a plan? Do we have a strategy when that comes? That's really the issue. You know, years ago I was talking to a guy, and he was talking about some of his issues with his anger and his temper, and you know, he was telling me, you know, what he literally has to do, even physically, when he starts to lose control and have those emotions and those feelings. And, you know, a lot of it was simple things like, you know, I have to walk away. Anybody relate to that? You've got to sometimes say, I've got to step away for a second. That's smart. That really is. That's recognizing before it what? Before it escalates, before it overcomes, before it overtakes you. Again, the sin is not in those, you know, having anxiety that hits us, having those emotions of anger that the sin is what we do with it, right? Our response. And so that's what is our strategy? What is our way of dealing with this? And I think that's important. And so kind of two things here. What is anxiety? What is it to be anxious? And then how does Satan use it? So if we start with the first one, what is anxiety? Give me some things that you think about, or maybe okay, you're working on something and you don't have control. Okay, I like that. What else do you think about? You think about maybe a definition or comes to mind when you think about what that is. Yeah, Dolores? Okay, you're thinking about the future, all the what ifs, right? Yeah, Rhonda? Reaction to fear? Yeah. Yeah. What the future is? Yeah, Roy? Having a family to feed? Yeah, that's a very, you know, specific, absolutely. I mean, what am I going to do? I'm responsible. I care for these people, and now this has happened, and what am I going to do? Yeah, what do you else think about things that come to mind, definitions, or maybe something that illustrates it, or what you have felt, or, yeah, go ahead. Do what? Deadlines, okay. Yeah, I'm up against the clock. I mean, I've got to get this done by tomorrow. And how am I going to do it? I've got this, I got that. I mean, absolutely. That pressure to do, and can I do it? And real good. Anything else think about anxiety or being anxious? Yeah, Bralina? Nervous? Yeah. Yeah. Anything else come to mind? Yeah, health, yeah. I think one of the keys is what, maybe, I don't know if it's Dolores. We'll give Dolores credit, Ron. I don't know if you said it or not, but we'll yield to her. The idea there of I don't know if you said the word unknown, but that's, yeah, you did. Okay, good job, Ron. We knew it was you all the time. But I think that's that the unknown, the hypothetical, right? I mean, that's not the only thing. Did you see it, Meredith? Right. Yeah, I know. Yeah, and this the after effect of that is incredible. But I really, yeah, Matt? Well, yeah. Yeah, we lose focus. place it all on ourselves to how am I going to figure this out? And that's what we're going to see here with the focus that we lose with God. Yeah, absolutely. Did something else have a hand? I like this. It's kind of lengthy, but it's a feeling of worry, nervousness, unease, typically about an imminent event or something with an uncertain outcome. It is normal in stressful situations such as public speaking, taking a test. Anxiety is only an indicator of an underlying disorder when the feelings become excessive, all-consuming, characterized by feelings of excessive worry, intrusive thought, fear, fatigue, and interfere with daily living. And so, all of us have dealt with anxiety. All of us have dealt with being worried. But this kind of, excessive is, I think, when we know we've really got a problem. And that is the key here. Now, I ran across something, and I got this from a gentleman who was an elder in the church, and he was also a physician, a doctor. And he talked about anxiety and stress one time, and this is kind of, he had it a lot more detailed and cool charts. I just remember I kind of scribbled my notes, and so you're not even getting the Reader's Digest, the Cleft Notes, you're getting like the scribbled notes. But he says it starts with a situation, an event. Now, he said it can also be a perceived situation. Like, okay, this could happen this week, right? Now, sometimes, like, okay, the end of the day, your boss comes to you and says, I need you to come in the morning, maybe a little early, and I need to meet with you. Have a good night. Okay? Now, that you're not, there's two parts to that. One, it's not made up. You're stressing about an event. But the second part of that is true. We're hypothetical, okay? We're imagining what could happen. And so he says you have a situation, and that causes your brain to fire up, right? That's what triggers everything, the stimuli, everything in the brain that is going to produce, and it's going to create, from that's going to be some kind of feelings, right, or emotions. It could be worry, it could be anger, it could be, whatever it might be, but it's going to lead to some sort of, now the brain, here's the thing we're going to talk about here. The brain, as a Christian, our mind is to be, and that's what Matt was talking about, we're to have God at the center of our thinking. And so if we interpret things through the lens of faith and Scripture, that's going to be the key here on these feelings. But it does lead to some sort of feeling. By the way, that feeling can be a peace. That feeling can be a sense of whatever it may be. I'm okay. It could be, anger. It could be emotion, like stress. That's going to produce some kind of action. Have you ever been quick with someone, short with someone? When you're ever stressed out, has that ever produced some actions in you that are a little bit, maybe you're a little quick with someone, or your spouse, or your child, right? And then have you ever had someone say, hey, what's wrong? What's wrong? And you have to fess up, right? Well, nothing. Yeah, don't do the nothing, right? We talked about that. We talked about that with husbands who come home and the wife is, what's wrong? Nothing. No, as husbands and men, right? And something is wrong. But it leads to an action, and sometimes that's negative, and we have to say, to be honest, I'm pretty stressful. I'm pretty worried about something. And I'm sorry I was ugly, or I'm sorry I was short, but my boss just told me to come in early in the morning because he needs to talk to me about something. And, and so it leads to some sort of action, and of course, good or bad, whatever the action, it has consequences. And he says, by the way, all of these feed on each other, especially as they're negative. And you think about the negative reactions, and it just starts it all over again, that process. And it can be compounded upon compound and just piled on. And so this is the kind of the flow of being anxious and anxiety. We can't control what's going to happen, the situation. I mean, you're going to have something happen to you. I mentioned that Sunday in my sermon. You say, Robert, you were a little negative maybe. I thought you'd be more positive on the, well, I was trying to be a little more realistic too. It may be the best year for every single one of us, physically, mentally, spiritually, financially, relationally, but I didn't start doing ministry this year. For some, there's going to be situations and events. Some we can see coming. Many of them we cannot, see coming. So we can't control that, can we? Life is going to happen in 2024, right? But here's what we can control. How we think, how we process it, which leads to our feelings, our emotions, which leads to what we do, and as a result, leads to the consequences based on how we react. And so that's kind of that cycle. Let me look at a couple of scriptures here I like, and it kind of comes back to this idea of what we know. And that's kind of a big theme here that I'm hitting on. Hebrews 10:34. Let's all turn over there. So we don't have a lot of scriptures here tonight. We're not doing a deep dive into the scriptures with these topics per se, necessarily. So what do we know about the Hebrew Christians? Was everything peaches and cream, wonderful, sunny skies for these Christians? What's going on? What kind of Christians were they? I mean, what I mean is, what was their ethnic, national? They were Jewish Christians, and they've become followers of Jesus Christ, and their life is just so much for the better, right? As far as what are they facing? Persecution, hardship. And what are they being tempted to do, by the way, now, as a result? Go back. Hey, I thought it was going to be better with Christ. I thought we'd have... And so he's telling them about that, and he gets into chapter 10, and this, look what he says here about, go ahead.
Their old support system, which was through the Jewish
Right.
the Jewish people, has been taken away.
Yeah.
They've
Yeah.
been outcasts.
Yeah. And so look what he says here. He makes this statement. But in spite of all that, the sufferings, they've been publicly exposed. They've been to insult, to persecution. But look at verse 34. You suffered along with those in prison and joyfully accepted the confiscation of your property because you knew. See that? You knew that you yourselves had a better and lasting possession. Question. Okay, it says they were coming in and taking their possessions. They were coming in and taking their property. You say they could do that? They can do that. It's like somebody says about the feds. Can they do that? They can do that, right? If they come in sometimes and have badges and guns, they can do it. Well, you know they could do it back then. The Jewish leaders, the Rome, gave them a lot of leeway, the Jewish authorities, to pretty much police yourselves, keep your people in line, don't let them rebel, pay your taxes. And Rome would pretty much turn their blind eye to what the Jewish leaders were doing. And so they're coming in. We know Saul of Tarsus. What's he doing in the book of Acts? He's dragging them out of their homes. Question, did any of that produce anxiety, you think? What if you're watching the evening news? Maggie and I are watching the evening news like most of you last night, trying to figure out, all right, what's the storm? Let's get the timeline, buddy. Come on, Travis Myers. We do Travis Myers now. So tell us the truth, Travis. What's going on? And so, but Travis, but they, you're sitting there watching that, and what if you're sitting there in your house and someone barges in and grabs your spouse and takes your, would you have any anxiety? Yes. What was their response ultimately to that? He says, joy. What? Because what's the key? He says, you what? Because you knew that what? Yeah. What if they take everything I have in this life? Right? We can't take it with us. And we have what? Something better. Yeah. The idea there is we know we have something better, then there is nothing in this life, possessions and stuff we have of that nature, nothing that is going to compare to what we have, what? In the glorious, what's awaiting us. And he says, because you know that, it's kind of like the old people will often say about, happy birthday, and especially as they get older, and they'll talk about, well, it beats the alternative. And I know in a sense, I know what they're saying, and I've joked with, but no, it doesn't. The alternative is better, Paul said, is to die and be with the Lord. And so they know they have something better, and so as a result, they could see that suffering with joy. They're not happy. They're not happy about what's happening. We're going to look at James here in just a minute. He's not saying you have to be happy that it's happening. Oh, I'm so glad they came in and took my spouse and threw him in prison and beat him and took my possessions. We don't have to be happy or like that, okay? And we can be upset, and we can have those emotions as far as, but ultimately, how do we respond to that? How do we view that suffering? And he says, you can do it with joy. Well, same thing in James. Look at James 1. You know this verse. You may not have known the Hebrews 10:34, but they did it joyfully, the taking of their possessions, because they had something better. That house, that car you have, that boat, nothing compares to what we have in the glories of Christ in heaven. And so, James 1, you know this verse. We can all probably just about all quote it. And he says, consider it pure joy, brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds. Consider it joy. Well, look at verse 3, he explains. Because you what? You know. What do you know? What is this going to do? It's going to produce what? It's going to produce endurance. My faith is going to grow. My faith is going to be made stronger. The suffering and the trials do not have to destroy me. They can actually make me stronger. They can make me better. Now again, it doesn't mean we have to invite it or say, boy, I just hope my roof falls in and my world falls apart physically, financially, and my relationships with my kids. We don't know. But we know when we live for Jesus, when we face trials, it produces this stronger character, this faith, this perseverance, and it leads to maturity so that you may be complete, lacking nothing. And so, it's kind of, in Matthew chapter 5, I didn't put this verse up here. I don't know why I didn't. Matthew 5, this is the last of the Beatitudes. Remember, blessed, verse 10 of Matthew 5, blessed are those who are persecuted. Favor is the idea. Fortunate ones is what it literally means. Boy, they're fortunate. Boy, they've got a good life, no health. He had a great job, and boy, they had money in the bank, and that's not the definition biblically of being fortunate. He says here, fortunate are the ones who are, blessed are the ones who are persecuted. Say what? Again, this is all backwards in our thinking. And he says, because of righteousness, for theirs is what? Keep reading. Blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Rejoice and be glad because what? Great is your reward. What do you know in light of that suffering, what the Lord is going to do for you? He's got what waiting for you? He's got a reward. Well done, good and faithful servant. So that's how we can endure it with joy. That's how we can endure it. And as James talks about, and the Hebrew writer says, they joyfully, because of what they know it leads to. And again, we don't have to like it. We're going to have emotions. We're all going to have those feelings of, but how we process it with our mind is going to lead to how we respond to anxiety and stress that comes as a result. And so you can respond in either two ways, basically. And so you can respond negative with what am I going to do, and everything, or anger, or whatever, or you can trust God and put faith in Him. And so, all right, here's my second question now we talked about. We're going to look at what can we do, but how does Satan use it? So let's get to that part now. We talked about anxiety. How does Satan use it then? What do you think? How's he used it with you? Maybe is a better question if you want to. Yeah, go ahead, Lucy. And we'll make you think God's punishing you. Okay. Yeah, Becky. God doesn't care. Yeah, Becky. Robs you of your trust. Yeah, he sure does. What else? How does Satan use that? Anxiety, worry. What have you, Ron? Right. Right. We're going to come up with our own plan. We're going to figure this out. Matt was talking about that. What do I have to do? How am I going to figure this out? We've learned to trust in ourselves, right? What else? Think about anxiety. Yeah, Jeff? Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, does he? Yeah, Wanda. Train it, yeah. Mental brain freeze, huh?
Well, Satan looks for us to be weak.
Right.
We can be really, really strong, but we get to a point where we're weak in making our decisions, and anxiety obviously contributes to that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's always waiting,
Yeah.
to take it.
Yeah. Dolores? Okay. Yeah, we strike out at others. We take it out on others, the people that are around us and we love, and our witness is damaged as a result. Anything else you think about how Satan might use that? Yeah, Lucy? Yeah. Where's God at, right? You know, what? All these hypotheticals that could... Okay, so... I didn't put it up on the screen. I should have, but it's a little bit lengthy, like the last, not as long as that definition, but this comes from C.S. Lewis, was a Christian writer in the 20th century, and this comes from one of his fictional books, The Screwtape Letters. It's an interesting book. It talks about, in the book, he writes about an old demon who's mentoring a young demon about how do we destroy their faith? And his name is Wormwood, by the way. So listen to what Wormwood, how he tells him. Yeah. He says, talking about the humans, we want him to be in the maximum uncertainty so that his mind will be filled with contradictory pictures of the future, every one of which arouses hope or fear. There is nothing like suspense and anxiety for barricading a human's mind against God. He wants men to be concerned, God wants men to be concerned with what they do. Our business is to keep them thinking about what will happen to them. And so I think there's a lot of that what if, that uncertainty, the unknown. And I think that's where Satan is really effective in getting us to. I mean, what did it cause? I mean, Abraham, we use that example, right? And Sarai. Going to have a child, going to be a great nation. Years pass and what? Nothing happens. Do you think they were ever anxious about that? Do you think they were ever sitting up at night going, when's God going to do this? Years start passing, right? And by the way, it's not like, well, y'all are young enough to still have what? They don't have years to just... And so what? Let's help God, right? Yeah, Matt?
Well, that's what you see right now. I mean, with the current state of chaos, with the disorder and all the stuff that's going on, I mean, that's exactly what Satan wants.
Yeah.
He wants chaos
Sure.
They don't want God to be.
Right.
So that's what's wrong with the culture right now. It's looking for a sense of stability,
Mm-hmm.
and the government's trying to be the answer, but the government will never be.
No, no,
So,
no.
I mean, that's why it's a golden opportunity for followers of Christ to be out there talking to people and
Yep.
say, hey, you want to talk about stability?
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, go ahead, Jeff. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And we've talked about this. I mean, basically, we've been saying you lose your focus off God. You know, I think the biggest one of the biggest things with worry and anxiety is you get caught up in it and it distracts you from who you really need to be focusing. And remember that Martha, you're worried and bothered, but Peter on the water, and he looks and he sees the winds and the waves, and he begins to sink. I mean, the focus, the losing the focus. And it's easy with worry and anxiety and stress, what's happening to us, to just that problem and this, and we lose sight of the fact that God is with us. And that leads to this kind of the solution here, what we can do. Matthew 6, 25 through 34. Turn over there real quick. You knew we were going to end up over here. Matthew 6 and verse 25. Therefore, I tell you, do not worry about your life. Now, when Jesus tells us something, that's important. He knows us, and he knows we're going to do this, and he knows we're going to struggle with this. And so he says, this is going to be a problem. To worry about your life, what you will eat or drink, or about your body, what you will wear. Is not life more than food, and the body more than clothes? Look at the birds of the air. They do not sow or reap or store away in barns. And yet your heavenly Father, what? How much, are you not much more valuable than they? Can any of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your life? Why do you worry about the clothes? See the flowers of the field grow. They do not labor or spin. Yet I tell you that not even Solomon in all his splendor was dressed like one of these. If this is how God clothes the grass of the field, which is here today and tomorrow is thrown in the fire, will he not much more clothe you, O you of little faith? And we'll pick up there in just a second. But what's he saying there? What's he reminding them? Yeah, God will take care of you. And I love how he describes God is our Father, right? Yeah, Matt?
As I understand that word worry in the original Greek, it's the idea of all-consuming. It's basically a consumptive anxiety, consumptive worry.
Yeah, it's an excessive, yes. Yeah.
It's basically all you can do.
Yeah. That's why I like the definition we gave earlier. That we're all going to have some stress and worry. And like I said, right. But it's that when we camp down on it, when it leads to the excessive. It's all I'm doing. That's all I'm thinking about. It's consuming me, absolutely. But as we go through that, whether degrees of that, wherever we're at times, we lose sight of the fact that God is our Father, right? You guys are children. You all have children and grandchildren. You're going to take care of them, right? Are you going to let your children suffer, at least that go without what they need? And even if they're suffering, you're going to be there for them. Roy, did I see you have a hand?
I was going to say that same thing you did. Worry is part of our makeup.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like love or hate. It's part of
Right.
it. And we all worry, like you said. We can't let that worry pull us away from God.
Yes.
We have to get stronger to God.
No. Yes, absolutely is.
Fix everything ourselves.
Yes.
Just the way we are.
And he's pointing them to God as the Father who provides, who loves you, who cares about you. And he has seen you through. I mean, if you're here tonight, I don't care what you've faced, what you've been through. You're sitting here. You are a living, breathing example that God has provided for you. Amen? You're here. And all of you got clothes on, and all of you got jackets. And I mean, now we may have health, and we may have financial, and we may have relationship issues with but God He has been there for us. And it's not His failing. It's when we don't trust Him, and we take our eyes off of Him. And again, doesn't mean He's going to take away the bad things, and that He's going to calm every storm. He'll be with us in the storm. What was Jesus doing in the middle of the storm? Sleeping. We can trust. He's in the boat. Are the apostles going to drown and die with Jesus in the boat? No. And so God is with us. He's got us. And so why do you worry? It's a faith issue. And that's why I said that. That's why I preached on that Sunday. It's a faith issue. And so, but again, your Father knows what you need. Seek first. There's the focus. Seek first His kingdom and His righteousness. All these things will be given to you. Therefore, don't worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. By the way, the stuff we worry about, 8 times out of 10, doesn't happen. The boss comes in and he's nonchalant and is like, oh, hey, I just need to tell you, we're going to have a new project. Do you want to, why did you, God is going to, we worry about things that most of the time never happen. And for a lot of people, they're living 3 days. 3 days in one. They're living in the past with all the regrets. They're living in the present with all of our responsibilities we have to do today. And then they're thinking about the future. They're thinking about tomorrow. 3 days, past, present, future. One day's hard enough, right? Just live today. And that's what Jesus says. Just today, focus on me. Seek first me. And these things will be added to you. And then look at Philippians 4. You know this verse. Philippians 4. Familiar verses. All right. Philippians 4 and verses 4 through 7. Rejoice in the Lord always. And I will say it again, rejoice. Let your gentleness be evident to all. The Lord is near. Do not be anxious about anything. And again, I think it's what the point there what Matt was saying is this idea of we're going to have anxiety. That's going to happen. But it's not excessive. We have an outlet for it. We take our worries, as Roy talked about, we're all going to have those emotions and feelings. What's he going to say? He says, but in every situation, what? Yeah, what do we do with our anxiety? What do we do with our worry, our stress? How am I going to do this? What could happen tomorrow at that meeting? What do we do when we have that? We give it to God. We trust in Him. We don't forget what we know about God. And what do we know about God again? What have we said? He's our Father. He's good. You're sitting here tonight. He's provided. He's been there. Now, it hadn't been easy. Has the waters been smooth sailing for some? No. But He's there for us. He loves us. And that's what we have to see here. It's what we know about God. And so I think this is the key on this. 1 Peter 5 and verse 7. Turn over there. I don't know why I didn't put this one up on the screen. I may have. I don't think it's after this slide, but it's time to turn over there as we're almost out of time. 1 Peter 5 and verse 7. Here's another way of saying this, what we've been saying. 1 Peter 5 and verse 7. Back up and get verse 6. 1 Peter 5, verse 6. Humble yourselves, therefore, under God's mighty hand. I mean, it always starts with humility, right? Matt, when we were talking about I. Humility will cause me to say what? I can do nothing, what? Without God. I'm humble. And so God's mighty hand. He will lift you up in due time. Cast all your what? Anxiety on Him because He cares for you. And by the way, the very next verse, I don't think it's coincident. The very next verse, he talks about Satan, the devil, right? Be on the lookout for the devil because he's like a roaring lion. And what does the devil want us to do? We talked about God doesn't love you. You need to do this yourselves. You know, remember what he came at Jesus with, by the way? If you are the Son of God, turn these what? I think he still says that to us. Well, if you're God's child, this wouldn't what? This wouldn't happen. They wouldn't do that. Yeah, and I think he's still doing that. And we've got to remember what we know about God. And we've got to turn to God and trust in Him and seek Him in prayer. And so I think the strategy, kind of the simple one, it's not simple, but is anxiety is a signal. It's alerting us it's time to pray. What am I going to do? I'm all anxious. I'm all wired up and I can't. That's a signal. It's time to pray. It's time to spend some time with God in His Word. It's time to remember what we know about God. And what does Paul say again? Let's go back to that. 2 Timothy 1. I know what? Who I have what? When Paul was facing trials, what did he go back to? What he knew about what? About God. His faith. Worship. Prayer. All of these things, stress and worry, they magnify our problems. That's what they do. We blow them up. Worst case scenario, I'm going to get fired. This is going to happen. My world, blah, blah. We magnify. Worry magnifies our worship. Prayer, focusing on God, shrinks our problems. Because when you put any problem you have up against the Almighty God, I don't care how big it is, right? How does it compare when you put it up against the Lord God? It's nothing. The creator of the universe, right? And so you put that up against God and it will shrink. Now notice I'm not saying it's going to take it away, right? And there's times where like Paul, we can pray to the Lord, I've got this thorn in the flesh. Lord, I'd like for you to take it away. And remember what the Lord tells him? No, you're going to keep that. It's going to keep you humble. It's going to keep your faith strong. And so the Lord, but He'll be with us. And He'll help us. And so it doesn't mean He always takes away the thorn, takes away the problem, but He gives us the peace and the strength to face it and the hope. Yeah, Kathy?
Well, Habakkuk, that's what that whole book is about.
Yeah, Habakkuk.
He says, though the fig tree may not blossom nor the
Yes.
on the vines, though the labor of the olive may fail, the fields yield no food, though the flock may be cut off from the fold, and there be no herd in the stalls, yet I will rejoice in the Lord, I will joy in the God of my salvation. The Lord God is my strength, and will make my feet like deer's feet, and He will make me walk on my high hills.
Yeah. We keep our trust in God. And so I think when we feel that anxiousness, when we feel that stress and that anxiety, that's the, I had on my car the other day, my check engine light came on, right? Now, here's the tricky part about that. For a lot of times, you can drive, you ever driven a car, that check engine light's been on for 200,000 miles, right? We have to be careful we don't take that approach with what we're going through. I can get through it. I got to push through. I got to, like Matt was saying, I got to figure this out. No, that's the warning light that says, it's the signal that says it's time to pray when we're going through that. Because Satan will say, if you don't, he wants us not to pray and trust God. Satan goes, like the screw tape letters, the older demon counseling the younger one says, that's when we go to work, right? In the unknown. And so anxiety, being anxious, it's a problem. But God is greater than it. So, all right, we'll pick up another topic there. Appreciate it. Sorry for going a little bit over. I yield back.